SEP Fanfic Readings presents Aurelian by BittyBlueEyes. Chapter 21. The One. Hey, Draco dully greeted as the door to Blaise's flat opened on him. He stood there with his hands in his pockets, feeling rather silly for just showing up at Blaise's house unannounced again. Hey, Blaise returned. He was looking smug as he leaned against the doorframe with the rocks tumbler in his hand. About time you got here. He tilted the glass around, watching the amber liquid slosh up the sides. What are you talking about? Draco asked indignantly. I've been expecting you, Blaise explained. I only just decided I was coming here 5 minutes ago, he scowled. Fine, but I was still expecting you. It's Tuesday. You kissed the girl on Saturday. If you didn't show up by tonight, I'd have had to go looking for you tomorrow. Blaise smirked. Here you go. Come on in. Blaise stepped aside and handed Draco the tumbler. Cocky bastard, Draco sneered. You even poured me a drink? No, actually that was going to be mine, but I'll pour another, Blaise chuckled. Have a seat. Draco accepted his offer and sat down in one of the armchairs in front of the empty fireplace. Well, start talking, Blaise smiled as he poured himself a glass of Ogden's old fire whiskey. I don't know where to begin, Draco admitted, taking a sip of his drink. He grimaced, but appreciated the familiar burn. Well, last I heard, you kissed Hermione Granger out of the blue and left without talking about it. That was 3 days ago. What happened when you saw her next? Blaise asked. We talked. Sort of, Draco said, remembering the awkwardness between them. Well, that clears it all up for me then, Blaise replied sarcastically. She invited me to dinner, Draco declared. Really? Blaise asked excitedly. I was right then. She was interested. So when do you meet her? We had dinner on Sunday. You already went out? Blaise asked with surprise. She asked you to dinner the same day you sort of talked? Yeah, Draco said, narrowing his eyes. He wasn't sure what to make of Blaise's astonishment and wondered if he should be offended. Well, how did it go? Where did you go? Blaise asked with enthusiasm. I went to her place. She made dinner, Draco answered. It was nice. She can cook? Blaise asked, looking rather impressed. Quite well, Draco smiled. And dinner was just nice? Blaise pressed. It was. It was really nice. We talked a lot. Draco looked like he was struggling a little with what to say. Damn it, she's the one, Blaise. Sorry, he asked, startled by Draco's outburst. She's the one. She's the girl. The one I want. She's it, and I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. I don't want to screw this up, Draco rattled off anxiously. Whoa, hold on, Blaise ordered, trying to catch up. The one? You mean, I think we skipped over quite a bit here. We've skipped over a lot. It happened so fast, Draco replied. That's not what I meant. Wait, Merlin, did you shag her? Blaise blurted out. No, Draco hastily exclaimed, his eyes wide. No need to get defensive. Nothing wrong with it if you did. You just said it was moving fast and you skipped over a lot, Blaise commented. So what are we talking about here? You said you think she's the one? No, I know she's the one, Draco corrected. How? I mean, the other day you were telling me how impossible it was, and now she's the one. I just know. I feel it. I could see it when she looks at me. No one's ever looked at me like that. I look at her and talk to her, and I just know that it has to be her. It could never be anyone else now. I can't screw this up, Blaise. If I screw this up, it will be the biggest mistake I'll ever make. Whoa, you're doing it again. Calm down and take a drink, Blaise suggested. Now, you're right. This is too fast. You're much too intense here. If you want this to work, your first step is to not act like this. I don't act like this. You know me. Have you ever seen me like this? Draco demanded. Drink, Malfoy, Blaise ordered sternly. And no, I haven't. It's quite frightening, actually. I'm not like this in front of her. I'm too quiet most of the time. I'm too nervous to say much. I catch myself smiling at her, though. I feel just as stupid then. She probably thinks I'm cute. Blaise cut himself off. She probably thinks you're cute. It's a girl thing. Really? Draco asked skeptically. Seriously, Blaise insisted earnestly. When a guy gets nervous or wears a goofy smile, girls think it's adorable. I don't think I like being considered adorable, Draco said uncomfortably. You will. Adorable doesn't mean soft. It goes right along with being handsome. Girls can say a guy is adorable and so masculine in the same sentence, Blaise smirked. Where do you get this rubbish? Doesn't matter. It's true. So don't worry about the weird smiles. Now, let's try something simple. Tell me about her. Not what she does or her friends. Tell me about her. She... She's fascinating, Draco said with a small, lopsided smile. She's brilliant. I mean, really brilliant. I've never known anyone so observant and understanding. She can be very well spoken, but when she gets excited or nervous, bumbles and rambles. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Blaise asked curiously. It's cute, Draco smirked. See, this is better, Blaise said in a patronizing tone, talking calmly and rationally. So next, what does she think of you? I don't know, Draco said uncomfortably, becoming stiff and anxious again. No, don't do that. Think about it. Talk about it, Blaise admonished. You have to have an idea of what she thinks of you. She likes me, Draco said uneasily. Well, that's good. Keep going. What does she like about you? How does she act around you? She seems comfortable around me sometimes, but then, just when I think things are going well, she gets quiet and looks worried and uneasy, Draco said miserably. Natural, Blaise said dismissively. You have to remember, she's probably as nervous as you are. The fact that you strongly disliked each other in school probably plays a part in it. The fact that you both get really comfortable around each other is a good thing. It sounds to me like things are going well. I don't know what you're so worried about. Things are going well. Too well. It's too fast. Everything is happening too fast. One day I was just me, and now... Draco stopped short. There was too much he couldn't say. Everything that was happening was too much. His life had been turned completely upside down. This is what I want. I can't screw this up. The same things again. You say it's too fast, it's what you want, and you can't screw this up. It's like a really twisted mantra. I think you're panicking over nothing. You admit that it's going well. I don't know what you think is moving too fast. You haven't shagged her yet. You seem to be taking this at a responsible pace if this is serious to you, Blaise reasoned. It is too fast. Things are happening completely out of order. Again, there were so many things he wanted to talk about that he just couldn't. How could he explain to Blaise that they were learning to become parents together before they even started getting to know each other? It's like we were at a point A and jumped to point C. We haven't had point B yet. Blaise shook his head. I don't know what you're talking about. You're not going too fast. You say that you're at point C, thinking you've already been through stages. What on earth can point C be if you haven't shagged her yet? And then what is point B that you think you're missing? The only thing that you've said that seems you're rushing things is the declaration that she's the one. And that's it, Draco said seriously, becoming quite frustrated again. Point C is knowing that she is the one. It's knowing that. And that we... People start out getting to know each other, and they work through things. Point C is when they finally realize true trust and dedication. And you think you're at point C? Both of you? Blaise asked skeptically. Well, yes, sort of. I just can't explain it, okay? He found himself suddenly shouting. Whoa, calm down, Malfoy, Blaise said placatingly. It's all right. Just explain what you can, all right? What is it that you feel you've missed? What's point B? Everything in between, Draco said vaguely. He didn't know how to explain. He was afraid he would slip up again like he did last time. He needed someone to talk to, though. Someone to try and understand. Fighting, he said finally. We've missed fighting. Like arguing? Blaise questioned, looking rather baffled. You're upset because you haven't argued in the 3 days that you've been kind of seeing each other a little. I'm being serious. If you put things like that again, I'll hex you and leave, Draco threatened with a belligerent glare. Okay, I'm sorry, he said sincerely, but I seriously don't understand what you're upset about. Fighting, Zabini, arguing. It's like I can't explain things. Things are further ahead and we've missed the middle. We've come to accept each other now without going through the struggle. Now whenever we hit that stuff, it's going to be a step back rather than forward, Draco grumbled in despondent frustration. Okay, I'll just take your word on that for now, Blaise acquiesced. What is it that you're afraid you won't be able to work out? I don't know. That's the problem. Draco stood up and ran his fingers through his hair. House elves? What? She doesn't like house elves. She's disgusted with people that own them. I own one, Draco said. Well, that doesn't have to be the end of a relationship. It sounds like something that you might want to discuss at some point, but it doesn't mean you have to fight about it. Sometimes you just have to agree to disagree. You just ask Perny not to come around when you're with her. Yeah, but for how long? I don't know. I don't know what you're... Oh, Merlin, you're already picturing marriage, aren't you? Blaise said in stunned disbelief. No, Draco said a little too quickly. I mean, I don't know. I can see it, but I can't. It's all wrong. I've seen it, but I can't imagine it now because... Ugh. Okay, stop. You're scaring me, Draco. I'm really happy that you found someone that makes you so happy that you've actually started thinking that far ahead. But you can't think like that. You can't live like that. You have to live today before you get to tomorrow. Just slow down and stop worrying. Just go with it. If she's really the one, then it will all work out in its own natural time. If this house elf thing really bothers you, then maybe you should talk about it. But I'm talking about discussing it, not provoking her into a heated argument. You like her. Just enjoy her and what you have going, okay? Draco took a deep breath, sighed, and nodded. You're right. I'm thinking too much. Of course I'm right. That's why you come to me, Blaise smirked. Really? I thought it was just for the liquor and a good laugh at your unnatural feminine insight, Draco retorted with a smirk of his own. Nothing unnatural about it. Just like in school, I merely study the subjects that interest me most, Blaise replied. Now drink up, you adorable little arsewipe. Now that is a good piece of advice, Draco said, emptying his glass in one. In all seriousness, if you take only one piece of advice from me today, then let it be to just go with it. Don't look too far ahead. Just go with it, Blaise repeated. Draco sighed again. Just go with it. And they were so fun, Aurelian smiled as he continued telling his mother about all of the things he had done with Ginny and the other Weasleys. He stood on the bed and held onto Hermione's shoulders for support as he stepped into his pajama bottoms. They even let me fly my broom into real Quidditch ground. They said my flying's so good maybe I play big Quidditch when I grow up. It's certainly possible, Hermione smiled fondly at the little boy. He looked absolutely exhausted. Even his smile was tired, but his eyes still twinkled with happiness. I'm so glad you had a great time. I really missed you, though. She ran her fingers through his hair, and he leaned forward into a hug. Hermione chuckled when he didn't let go. I miss you too, Mummy. Well, we should have nearly all day together tomorrow. What do you think of that? She asked, absently rubbing his back. We have fun? Of course, but in order for tomorrow to start, you have to put your day to bed. Time to sleep now, love. No, no sleep. Yes, sleep. No, I don't want you to go. Go? Hermione asked, not sure what he meant. I'm not going anywhere, love. You stay here sleep with me? He asked hopefully. Oh, I see. No, but I'll be back soon. There's just a little more work I want to get. No, no work. No leave. Please, Mummy. Please stay. Please, Aurelian begged. Hermione looked miserably torn. If I come to bed with you now, will you let me read my papers at breakfast? Uh-huh, Aurelian nodded excitedly. All right, Hermione smiled. Scooch over. Hermione's heart warmed at the beautiful, genuine smile Aurelian wore. He moved over to his side of the bed, the side pressed up against the wall, and Hermione slipped in next to him. As soon as she settled into position on her side, facing him, he moved back over to her and snuggled up to her body. Hermione had initially been uncomfortable with this freely given affection, but as the days passed, she became quite used to it and rather enjoyed it at times. She draped her arm over him and rubbed his back again. I love you, Aurelian, she whispered softly. You miss me, Mummy? He asked. Yes, I did, she smiled, running her fingers through his hair. I miss you, too. I love you, Mummy, he said, pressing his head closer into her. I love Daddy, too. I know you do. You love Daddy? Hermione was surprised by his question and wasn't quite sure what to say. I care about your daddy. He's a very special person, she replied. Her answer was sufficient to the toddler, but it had her once again examining her feelings for Draco. It had been a very long and emotionally exhausting day. She recalled again the horrifying image of Draco attempting to take his life under the Imperious Curse. It was a terrible vision, but so was the picture devised by her imagination. The image of Draco no longer being there. Their relationship was so new that it could hardly even be defined as a relationship, but the thought of losing it, of not seeing him any more, was a devastating one. You love Daddy? Aurelian's words replayed in her mind. Not yet, but soon, she thought to herself. I don't know what it is, but I already know. He's the one. Hermione leaned forward and placed a tender kiss on Aurelian's head. Good night, Aurelian. Daddy here! Aurelian cried excitedly as he raced into the living room. Hermione followed at a leisurely pace and smiled when she saw Aurelian wrapped once again around Draco's legs. "Good morning," Draco greeted the small boy, ruffling his hair. "Good morning," he said as he looked up at Hermione. His heart skipped a beat when he saw her. "Good morning," she returned, overwhelmed by the way he looked at her. "Just go with it," Draco whispered to himself. "Sorry?" Hermione asked, unable to hear what he had said. Draco slowly walked over to her, hesitated a second, and then brushed his fingers into her hair and bent forward to give her a tender but passionate kiss. A soft hum escaped her as her hands came to rest on his chest. "No more. Time to play," Aurelian insisted, pushing on Hermione's legs in an attempt to separate his parents. Hermione smiled and pulled away from the kiss as she blushed and looked away bashfully. They had only kissed a couple times before. It was quite a surprise to be greeted in such a way. She looked back up at him, and an anxious feeling immediately twisted in her gut. Draco was frozen in place with a solid and challenging mien. She followed his gaze, once she realized that it was not directed at her, and gaped when she saw Harry staring at them from the kitchen doorway. I was just wondering if you were done with your breakfast so that I can wash the dishes," Harry told her. Hermione's blush deepened. "Yes, thank you." Harry nodded and disappeared back into the kitchen. Harry got here a bit early today to watch the news on the telly," Hermione explained, nervously nibbling her bottom lip. "He didn't look surprised," Draco noted, still staring warily over Hermione's shoulder. "Well, I'm sure he was a little, but no, he's not surprised," Hermione admitted. "What did you tell him?" Draco asked curiously. Slowly and reluctantly, he pried his eyes from the empty doorway and set them upon Hermione's calculating gaze. "That we were seeing each other," she stated. "That's okay, isn't it?" "Yes, I'm just a little surprised by his reaction. Or lack of," Draco said, glancing at the kitchen doorway again. "Weasley knows too, doesn't he? That's why he looked at me strangely yesterday." "Well, yes, but he probably would have looked at you like that anyway," Hermione chuckled. "You expected them to protest?" "At the very least, I expected to be threatened," Draco admitted. "I was a bit nervous, too." "Yeah, well, you'll soon discover that protesting something that Hermione is passionate about isn't a smart idea," Harry chuckled as he entered the room. Draco and Hermione looked at him in surprise, having thought he was still in the kitchen. He plopped down onto the sofa with a smirk. "Though usually sweet and reserved, she's nothing to mess with when she's cross. Quite like my Ginny, actually." "A common lioness trait, I'm told," Draco said with a smirk, remembering Blaise's predilection for feisty Gryffindor females. "I'm standing right here," Hermione said indignantly. "And nothing has been said that should come across as an insult," Draco assured her. "So, ready to get back to our discussion?" Harry asked. "Yes," Hermione answered, joining him on the sofa. "No," Aurelian protested. "I need clothes so I can play." "I know," Hermione told him apologetically. "I'm sorry. We've gotten really behind schedule this morning. I'll change you out of your pajamas soon, love. You can still play in your pajamas, and I'll change you when we're done talking." Aurelian pouted and moved toward the toys piled in the corner. "No, Daddy!" Aurelian protested again when Draco sat with Harry and Hermione. "You play with me." "I'm sorry, Aurelian," Draco apologized, "but I need to hear this." Aurelian harumphed and started moodily digging through his toys. "Okay, so Harry and I were watching the news today for any stories of recent murders. Muggles are rather good at determining cause of death, and they don't know of anything like the killing curse, so finding no evidence as to why a person died would baffle them," Hermione explained. "There was a story today about a girl that was found dead outside of an entrance to the underground 3 days ago. They said that the police still have no leads as to who the killer might be. They didn't mention anything in the story about how she died, so we're a bit curious. They would usually mention if the person was stabbed or shot or beaten. The place she was found also happened to be only 2 blocks from the leaky cauldron," Harry added, "so we're discussing how we might—" "Help! Help!" Aurelian's muffled cries reached them from behind the sofa. Hermione turned around on her knees to look behind the sofa. She chuckled and pouted in amused exasperation when she saw Aurelian sitting on the welcome mat, tangled in his pajamas. His bottom half was completely bare, and his pajama top was stuck halfway off his arms and head so that he could not remove it or even push it back into place. "Oh, Aurelian, I told you that I would change you soon," Hermione groaned. She and Harry had been trying to discuss this piece of news for about an hour, but kept getting interrupted. "I'm sorry, Harry. We're going to get through this conversation at some point." "Hold still, Uri. I'm coming." "No," Draco said, holding out an arm to stop her. "I can get him dressed if you want." Hermione looked pleasantly surprised by the offer, but Harry looked positively stunned by it. He had not really seen Draco interact with Aurelian. Draco walked over and helped free the struggling boy from his rebellious garment. Thank you, Hermione smiled warmly. His clothes are in the bottom drawer of the dresser in my room. But Aurelian, why don't you use the toilet before you get dressed? Aurelian grinned and ran down the hallway. Harry smiled and shook his head as he watched the naked child retreat from his father right behind him. I still can't believe he's yours. I know, said Hermione. Crazy, isn't it? He's incredible, though, Harry told her seriously. Thank you. So how do we go about getting more information about this murder? He asked. Well, I think it wouldn't be worth our time to ask the press, because if they didn't mention it in the report, then they may not know the cause of death. I think the best would be to go straight to... I'm sorry to interrupt, said Draco from the hallway, but where do you keep your cleaning supplies? Oh no, Hermione groaned. What now? Well, I was standing in the hall while he used the toilet, but he had left the door open. When he saw me, he yelled, "Piracy!" and slammed the door. Well, he had to move away from the toilet when he closed the door, and he sort of urinated everywhere, Draco explained. I vanished it all, but I thought I should sanitize it also. Piracy? Harry asked, trying to suppress his laughter. Privacy. He can't pronounce it correctly. And I'm sorry, I'll get it, Hermione offered, getting to her feet. I can handle it, Draco assured her. I know how to clean. I just need to know where the products are. Okay, I just meant, well, the cleaners are locked under the bathroom sink. And, well, just make sure you lock it back up when you're done, said Hermione. Are you sure you don't want me to help? He's fine, Harry assured Hermione. Draco had already disappeared before she asked. He offered and told you he was quite capable. Let him do it. Hermione nodded and continued on her last thought pertaining to the investigation. Draco cleaned the bathroom quickly and efficiently and locked the cleaners away before ducking into the bedroom. What are you doing? He asked. Aurelian was standing on the opened bottom drawer and was rummaging through the top drawer. Several sets of child-sized robes and underpants were strewn across the floor. I'm looking for my orange robe, Aurelian explained. Well, you're not going to find it there. Your mother said that your clothes are in the bottom drawer. You're going to get hurt climbing up like that, Draco told him. He took a firm hold of the boy's tiny wrist and helped him climb back down. When Aurelian had his feet firmly on the ground again, Draco noticed that he was still holding onto a garment from the top drawer. He held out his hand to receive it and blushed when he realized that it was a pair of Hermione's knickers. He quickly stashed them in the top drawer and closed it. He desperately hoped that Hermione wouldn't think that it was him that had dug through the drawer when she opened it next. Now, you said you're looking for the orange one, Draco asked. Aurelian nodded. Well, you can't find it when you rummage through like this. You have to keep things tidy to find what you're looking for. With a wave of his wand, Draco caused the clothes on the floor to fold and arrange themselves neatly in the bottom drawer. There now. Why don't you have a peek in there and see if you can find the orange one without moving them? Aurelian knelt down and looked carefully through the drawer. All of the robes were stacked front to back instead of on top of each other, so that the boy could see each one. After a moment of scanning, Aurelian pointed to the orange robe and smiled triumphantly at Draco. Good job. Now, take it out carefully and grab a pair of underpants, Draco instructed. Aurelian followed orders, and Draco closed the drawer for him. Draco knelt down in front of the toddler and held his hand out for the garments. No, I do myself, Aurelian told him proudly. He sat down on the floor again and slipped on his underpants, giggling when he allowed the elastic to snap against his waist. He picked up the robe and started to pull it on over his head. Draco watched skeptically and wasn't sure what to do when Aurelian obviously trying hard to push his head through one of the armholes. Can I give you a hand? He offered. No, I do it, the child insisted, grunting as he tried harder to force his head through. Even brilliant men like you need to ask for help sometimes, Draco told him. Let me help just a little. Aurelian stopped struggling and just stood there with his hands still grasping the fabric. It won't go! Here, just a little help. Draco pulled up on the sleeve and moved it just an inch to the side. Now give it a try. Aurelian pulled again and his head popped through. I did it! Aurelian exclaimed proudly. I knew you could, Draco smiled. He tugged the sleeve back a little to make sure it didn't go on backwards, and told Ari to put his arms through. As soon as he finished dressing, he raced to the living room to share the news of his success. I dressed me! He proclaimed with his arms spread wide to proudly display himself. Great job, Hermione smiled. Very nice, Harry commended. So, Hermione continued with Harry, I agree. The Confundus charm is the best option. I'll see if I can go to the police station either later today or tomorrow. Good. Now, I know you get a bit annoyed with my compulsion when it comes to details, but I really think that it's helpful to gather everything we can on this, no matter how inconsequential it may seem. I feel it'd be irresponsible if we looked anything that has the potential to be helpful in some way, Hermione said seriously. Draco looked at her curiously, wondering not so much about what she was thinking just then, but what things they had looked into in the past that made her insecure and defensive in bringing forth her idea. Hermione, I always want to know what you're thinking, Harry told her. Well, it might be helpful to see if we can narrow down the time frame of when she may have been returned to a body, Hermione suggested. I was just thinking, if she used the same ritual as Voldemort to return, then they'd need an extremely large cauldron. Not many people own a cauldron that size, so not many are sold either. What if they needed to purchase one? I was thinking that maybe we could check with Pottage's cauldron shop to see if they remember selling any cauldrons that size in the last month. That's not a bad thought. It'd be nice to narrow down the time when she returns so that we can try and guess what she's planning, Harry reasoned. And it's a long shot, but they might remember something about who they sold it to. Checked up on easily enough, too, Draco added. I could have a look into that this afternoon. I'll check both the Diagon Alley location and Hogsmeade. Thank you, Hermione smiled fondly. So, then we just need to worry about... Harry stopped short when he heard the doorbell ring. Oh, Merlin, what time is it? Hermione panicked. Godric, is it really 11 already? Yes, Draco answered after checking his watch. What's the matter? Who... Just a minute! Hermione shouted at the door as she ran to the kitchen to hide their research. Who? Draco started. Her mother, Harry answered before Draco could finish talking. What? Draco asked, his eyes widening in surprise. Yeah, she invited her mom over today. We got rather behind schedule this morning, and it seems that we've lost track of time, he replied. Her mother? Draco asked, staring warily at the door. He unconsciously glanced over his shoulder at the fireplace and bag of flue powder. Yeah, she obviously forgot to mention it, Harry smirked at Draco's discomfort. Don't worry, Malfoy. We're not invited to stay. In fact, if you're thinking of going to the cauldron shops now, I could tag along. Yeah, Draco answered slowly. He pried his eyes from the door and tried to focus on what Harry had just said. Yeah, you'd probably get answers easier, and you wouldn't have to look menacing to do it. Just a second, I'm coming, Hermione shouted through the flat again. She raced into the living room with stacks of files and books in her arms, and then down the hall. Aurelian was giggling at his mother's frantic behavior. Notepad, Harry, she added quickly when she re-entered the living room. Harry picked their notes off the table as Hermione sped around the couch and stopped at the door. She blew out a breath and opened the door. Morning, Mum. Did you forget that I was coming? Helen Granger asked with an amused smile. No, of course not. I just really lost track of time. Come in, Hermione said, stepping out of her mother's path. Grandma Helen! Aurelian smiled, stepping up next to Hermione. You remembered, Helen beamed, lowering herself to one knee. We already eat at breakfast, Aurelian said apologetically. That's okay, so did I, she replied. I came over to talk today, and maybe we can get lunch or a snack somewhere later. Okay, he said enthusiastically. What in your bag? Oh, well, mostly some old newspapers for, your mother, but I did bring a couple of things for you, she answered. She reached into her bag and pulled out a box of toy cars. Look, Mummy! Cars! Aurelian exclaimed. I play now? Sure, Helen answered before Hermione could. Aurelian took the box and raced into the kitchen. Helen smiled, but it slipped a little before she stood up to rejoin the adults in the room. Thank you, Mum, Hermione said ardently. Helen nodded with a kind but sad look in her eyes. The conflict inside of her was unmistakable. She was torn when she looked at her daughter. She looked like she wanted nothing more than to pull her daughter tightly into her arms and hold her, but she could just not bring herself to do so. She was simply too afraid to trust her daughter the way she once had. It wasn't that she didn't love her daughter, for there was nothing she loved more than her family, but she had just been too hurt by Hermione's past deceits. They had been working through it over the past 2 years, but Helen truly felt the strength of their bond building. And then things suddenly changed again when Aurelian was introduced. She thought no less of her daughter, but life had taken another sudden turn for them, and she wasn't sure where it placed them. Good morning, Dr. Granger, Harry greeted. Harry, she returned with a smile. How are you? All right, I suppose, he answered. You're Draco Malfoy, aren't you? Helen asked. Her eyes narrowed suspiciously at the blond man next to Harry. Draco swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'm sorry, Hermione apologized, looking rather uncomfortable. Mom, this is Draco Malfoy, as you guessed. And Draco, this is my mother, Dr. Helen Granger. Draco wished that Hermione had forgone the formal introductions, for formal introductions were ceremonious and called for proper mores. A pleasure to meet you, Dr. Granger, Draco said cordially as he presented himself before her. Only with long, practiced discipline was he able to extend his hand to her without it shaking with his nerves. Helen looked at him warily and extended her hand. Draco took it and gently placed a light kiss on her knuckles. The woman looked completely bewildered by this action, and Hermione nearly groaned. What was proper for the traditional upper-crust wizarding society seemed quite out of place right then. Still, she couldn't help but think how adorable he was. Well, we have to get going, Harry announced suddenly. It was nice seeing you again, Dr. Granger. I'll, see you later, Hermione. Please, Hermione answered with a plea in her eyes, gaining curious looks from Helen and Draco. Harry nodded and pulled Draco out the door with him.